welcome back to the channel. This video follows on from the last video in my little series of videos about the different levels of police driver training and how to prepare for a police driving course or a police driving test. And in this video I'm going to look at the police basic driving permit. So basic driving permits were introduced quite a few years ago, probably back in the early 2000s, maybe a little bit earlier than that. Prior to that, if you were a police officer, you had to wait until you'd done a standard or response driving course before you could drive any kind of police car just from A to B, just to get you around. And that was a bit limiting. A bit limiting in terms of allowing people to do the job, especially if you worked in a rural area like this. You had to rely on getting lifts off other people. So they introduced the basic driver permit. And to be clear, what a basic driver permit allows you to do is drive a police car, and it does allow you to drive any police car of any performance level if you're required and if you're asked to, but you are not allowed to use any of the exemptions. And the main exemptions for police officers are speed limits, red traffic lights, and keep left, keep right signs. There are some other exemptions, but we'll not go into that because you'll learn that on your subsequent courses if you were going to go on and use those exemptions. Other things that you're not allowed to do as a basic police driver is stop other vehicles. Some police forces do have a sort of plus to their basic driving course where they will teach you to stop other vehicles and other cars on the road, but unless that's specifically included in your basic driver permit, you're not allowed to stop other vehicles on the road. The only time you're allowed to use any emergency equipment on the vehicle as a basic driver is if the vehicle's stationary. So if you are driving from A to B, you're going out to get a statement off somebody and you come across a road traffic accident, clearly you'd be expected, especially if you're a police officer, you'd be expected to stop and assist. And in order to make that scene as safe as possible, you are allowed to switch your blue lights on a stationary police vehicle. But you're not allowed to use them on the move. You're not allowed to use them in responding to incidents. So what does it consist of, a basic sort of driver assessment? Well, it is literally just a bit of a driving test. And there is no expectation that you are driving to any sort of accepted police standard. So in the subsequent videos to this, I'll be talking about the system of car control, IPSCA, the 5 phases, all that kind of stuff. There's not really any expectation that you will drive to those standards. But I'm going to give you some tips on how to prepare for this driving assessment. The assessment itself is about, I don't know, 40-45 minutes, something like that. It'll be on a mixture of roads, on some urban roads, might put you on the motorway if there's one nearby. They might take you out on some more urban roads if that's what your force area is like. It'll be within your own force area and it'll make sense where that test route is. The examiner will be one of the instructors from the driving school. Don't be intimidated by that. Like I said, we're not looking for an advanced police level of driver standard at basic level. What they're looking for is somebody who can drive safely and legally and competently and with a bit of consideration for other road users. Now that doesn't sound like a lot to ask, but if you've not had any driver training since you passed your driving test, you know, it might be 20 years since you passed your driving test, it can be a bit intimidating going along for that driver assessment. So let me give you a few tips on how to prepare for that driver assessment and a few reminders of the things that the examiner is going to be looking for. First of all, check your driving license, make sure it's up to date. Your driving license itself will be valid, unless there's any medical reasons, it'll be valid until you're 70. However, the photocard license expires after 10 years. There's quite a lot of people turn up for a basic driver assessment or a police driving course that they've been waiting for ages, get the driving license out and it expired last year. Make sure there's plenty of time left on your driving license, it's not due to expire anytime soon, and make sure it definitely hasn't expired. Also, get your eyesight checked. There will be an eyesight test prior to your basic driving assessment. Now that eyesight test will just be the normal eyesight standard for you know, so for civilian drivers, but that standard is that you need to be able to read a number plate at 20 metres. But my advice to you is, if you're going to be driving professionally in a police car and you're going to be driving a car regularly as part of your work, get your eyesight checked at an optician. Get glasses if you need them for distance vision. Certainly as you move on to more advanced police driver training, you're going to need really long distance detailed vision. I like to have really crisp distance vision, and I've been wearing glasses since I was in my sort of 20s. And I get my optician to check my eyes every 2 years and update my prescription if I need to. So check your driving licence, get your eyesight checked, make sure there's no health conditions that restrict your driving, and have a conversation with the driving school before you go if you've only got an automatic licence. There are more and more people now coming through who've only got an automatic licence. Obviously that restricts you to only driving automatic cars. There are more and more automatic cars around these days. Police forces are moving across to automatic cars even for just normal response cars rather than just for advanced cars. So speak to your driving school if you've only got an automatic licence. A, that'll make sure that they have an automatic car available for your basic driver assessment, but B, they'll be able then to give you guidance on what you can and can't drive within your own police force. Now when you go for your basic driver assessment, they'll probably give you some guidance beforehand on how to check the vehicle properly before you use it. This is something that people forget regularly when driving police cars as part of the work. They just grab the keys, jump in the car and zoom off to the first job. Well, those cars are driven by lots and lots of different people with lots and lots of varying standards, and you want to be sure that car is safe and roadworthy before you go out. There is nothing that members of the public enjoy more than pointing out to you that you're committing an offence in your police car. It might be a brake light out, it might be a headlight out, it might be a tyre that's got a bulge in it that hasn't been noticed. It's your job as a driver of a police vehicle to make sure that vehicle is roadworthy before you go out, especially if it's liveried, especially if it's marked up as a police vehicle. These days people will video you, you'll be on TikTok, you'll be on Twitter before you even know it, illegally driving an unroadworthy vehicle. It might surprise people out there who aren't from a police background to find out that there are police cars driving around with faults on it. Those of us that come from a police background know that these cars get driven hard and driven badly at times, let's be honest. Don't be that person. Be the one who finds the fault before you go out in the vehicle. So when it comes to your basic driving assessment, what preparation can you do for it? Well, it may be that it's a while since you passed your driving test, but the standard that they're looking for is nothing really more than a DVSA driving test. It's marked in a different way, it's not quite as much fault-based marking, but all that examiner is looking for is for you to go out and drive safely and legally. Now if you can do that smoothly, if you can do that with a little bit of finesse, that's all the better, but you don't have to. It just has to be safe and legal and appropriate to the circumstances that you're driving in. So first off, speed limits. Stick to every speed limit. Remember, you don't have any exemptions with a basic driving permit. Stick to every speed limit. Remind yourself what the speed limits are. If you're not sure what the speed limit is on the road that you're on, assume it's a 30 until you see something else. So the only speed limits where generally we don't have repeater signs in this country are 30 miles an hour speed limits. If there are street lamps and no repeaters, assume it is a 30 limit. A repeater is the small, reduced size speed limit sign. So assume it's a 30 until you see something that tells you otherwise. And if you then see a 40 sign or a 50 sign, fair enough. You know what the speed limit is. And while we're on the subject of signs, get yourself a copy of the highway code and remind yourself what the signs mean. And when you're driving in your own car, because you can prepare in your own car, you can go out and you can prepare for a basic driving test, try and spot every road sign when you see it and remind yourself what we are. This is an unusual, well not an unusual, it's unusual on this road, is a route confirmation sign. It just confirms that you're going in the right direction on this road. It's pre-sat-nav type of stuff. You know, there we've got a triangle warning sign for double bends, first to the right. We've got a chevron board indicating a sharp deviation to the right, a finger post sign on the right indicating a tourist destination, and a 40 repeater sign. So talk to yourself as you're driving around. Try and read out every road sign. You don't need to do commentary on your basic driving test, let's be clear, but it'd be very useful for you as part of that test to read out every road sign when you see it, to remind you what those road signs mean. The ones you need to pay special attention to are the circular road signs with a red ring around it. Those are mandatory, you have to do what they say. The triangle warning signs, you probably know this already, but they are a warning sign. They warn you about something that's coming up that might be an issue. But the circular signs with a red ring around them tell you what you have to do or what you must not do. They are mandatory road signs. So as well as sticking to the speed limits on your basic driver assessment, make sure you adhere to any mandatory road sign. Anything with a red ring around it, you must adhere to. If you go through a stop sign, and a stop sign is indicated by one of those, are they octagonal? Are they octagonal? They've got 8 sides. Anyway, it's a stop sign, a red sign with stop in the middle. Now this will sound really stupid, this. There's only one thing you need to do at a stop sign, and that is stop. And you would not believe how many people roll through stop signs at half a mile an hour and think that they've stopped when they haven't. So if on your basic driver assessment you go through a stop sign, make sure that you stop fully and the car comes to a complete stop. You don't have to put your handbrake on, but that might help to remind you to come to a stop. Momentarily pop the handbrake on, take it off again. It's a good little tip. Next tip I'm going to give you is remember your mirror checks. So one of the really common fails on a basic driver assessment is somebody not doing sufficient mirror checks, not looking behind them enough. Now you don't need to exaggerate it. Some people will say, oh, you've got to adjust your mirror so it's just out of place and you've got to move your head to look in it. Don't do that. The examiners, the instructors are really experienced. They'll be able to tell whether you're checking your mirrors or not. But as a basic rule, try and look in that mirror, in your centre mirror, every 10 seconds or so, and about the same for your side mirrors as well. If you're on busier roads or on a motorway, check it for a bit more frequently and a bit more often. But regular mirror checks help you build up a picture of what's happening around the car, 360 degrees around the car, in the far distance, behind and on both sides. And there are times as well when you need to do a little shoulder check. So when you're setting off from stationary, little shoulder check, just to make sure there's nothing in your blind spot. And a left shoulder check is also useful to look for cyclists when you're turning at junctions and things like that. So remember these little details. These are the things that as an experienced driver who hasn't had any additional driver training, these are the things that you forget, that you take for granted. They're the things that will fail you on a basic driver assessment. The next tip relates to nerves. You will be nervous because it's a driving assessment and it's either a police officer or a member of police staff who's an instructor sat next to you assessing your driving. That's not a nice situation to be in for anybody. I would still feel nervous now if I had to go and do a basic driver assessment. So in terms of your nerves, just remember it's a relatively straightforward test to pass, but it's an easy one to fail by making silly mistakes. So a little bit of nerves is a good thing. It helps you concentrate, it helps you focus. Just don't let it overwhelm you, don't let it get the better of you, don't get to a point where you're shaking in the car and all this kind of stuff. Just remember it's only driving, and you've already got a driving licence, you've probably already got a car, and you've probably already got quite a few miles driving experience before you do this. All we want to do is see that you can drive safely and legally. That's the important thing to remember. So a bit of nerves is okay, just don't let it get the better of you on the drive, that's all. And I suppose the next tip really is don't try and break any pots. You don't have to go particularly fast, even if you're on a national speed limit road. Just go with what you're comfortable with. You don't have to get any overtakes in, it's not one of those driving tests. They just want to see that you can get round and back to the driving school and through a few different scenarios, through a few different junctions, and deal with the normal day-to-day hazards of normal driving without getting flustered, without making huge mistakes and without cocking things up really badly. Now most of us manage that on a day-to-day basis, it's just a drive, and this is no different. So stick to the speed limit, get your mirror checks in, remind yourself what the road signs are for, remind yourself how you're supposed to deal with certain scenarios like stop signs. You know, for roundabouts, remember, we don't have to stop at every roundabout. We are planning to stop, but we're looking to go. It's always give way at a roundabout, it's never stop. So just look for a suitable gap to pull into. And when you get back to the driving school and they ask you to park up, make the effort to reverse into a parking bay. Even if they don't ask you to, make the effort to back and reverse into a parking bay. So always good practice with police vehicles, and certainly as you go on to do your standard and your advanced driving course, always good practice to reverse into a parking bay, because if you're in the station or you are somewhere else and your car's in a parking bay and you get an emergency call, all you've got to do is jump in the car and drive out. You're not faffing about reversing out, and it's reducing your response time to incidents. So in terms of your basic driving permit, that's it, that's the preparation you can do. Go out and drive legally and carefully, pay attention to your driving, don't fall into autopilot mode, concentrate on what you're doing, think about every action that you're doing in the car, and when it comes to your basic driver assessment, you should be fine. A couple of other tips: keep it on the black stuff, we drive on the left in the UK, and don't crash. If you stick to those rules, you should easily pass your basic driver assessment. So if you've got one coming up, that's how to prepare. Good luck. You won't need it, you'll be fine. It's just driving. And it's quite a nice start to your police driving career. Once you've got your basic driving permit, don't forget, you don't have those exemptions. And these days, if you are caught out using exemptions from speed limits and red traffic lights and using your emergency equipment when you're not allowed to, they won't hesitate to discipline you. They won't hesitate to have you in front of a panel, and your job could be at risk. So it's really important that you stick to the restrictions of your basic driving permit. So that's it for this video. Hope you've enjoyed it. Hope you got something out of it. If you have got a basic driving assessment coming up, let me know in the comments how you've gone on, and let me know whether this video was helpful to you or not. So don't forget to go and have a look at the website, reglocal.com. If you do want a day's driver coaching, maybe in preparation for a police driving course, drop me an email through the website, let me know, and we'll sort something out. But for now, thanks for watching. In the next video, I'm going to cover standard or response police driving courses and how to prepare for one of those. But for now, thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.